Welcome to ETEnergyWorld's panel discussion on Wind Energy 2016. To talk more on this, the issues and challenges in the sector, we have a distinguished panel today with us. On my right, we have Mr. J.K. Jethani, Principal Scientific Officer, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, Mr. Chintan Shah, President Strategic Business Development, Suzlon, Mr. Sarvesh, Kumar, Chairman, Indian Wind Turbine Manufacturers Association, and Mr. Sabyasachi Majumdar, Senior Vice President, ICRA. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you.
Sir, first I would like to talk to Mr. Chintan Shah. Where does the industry stand today? You are from the largest player, Suzlon, so you would know more about it. Where does the industry stand today, and what kind of growth do you see going ahead?
As the government of India has announced 175 gigawatt of capacity, of which 60 gigawatt is to come from wind, 60 gigawatt from ground-mounted solar, and 40 gigawatt roof-mounted solar. So at least now we are at equal footings of 60 gigawatt of targets. 27 gigawatt plus has already been added in the last year, and this year the industry estimate puts us in the range of 4 gigawatt plus of installation in the current year. So going by this growth which is there, we don't foresee much of an issue to reach 60 gigawatt target by 2022. There are medium term and short term challenges, but the long term outlook for the sector is quite good, because you need to more and more energy requirement is going to come because of higher increase of investments into manufacturing and all. Plus, as you also know, yesterday only it got reported that old power plants are going to be dismantled. So there's going to be a shortage of supply in the going future when you retire your old plants, which are not efficient, and you replace with newer plants. So the need for electricity is bound to be there on a long-term basis.
If you have to talk about the short-term and medium-term challenges, what would those be?
See, wind has been this bit of a cyclical in nature, in terms of cyclical in both in terms of markets also. At a point of time, you see about 2 or 3 states doing very good. Like last year, Madhya Pradesh added about 1290 megawatts. So this year, obviously there are transmission constraints there, RPO constraints there. We cannot repeat 1290 megawatt. But we have new markets emerging like Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Gujarat, which are doing quite good this year. Similarly, 5 years down the line, the outcome may be totally different. But we hope that the way the momentum has been created, and particularly with better technologies getting employed by manufacturers, the higher hub heights as well as larger rotor diameters, which is increasing the plant load factor and reducing the variability of wind turbines, of wind energy, is going to be the future. And this is where the promise would come in. And also we'll have onset of wind solar hybrid projects at transmission level. Now that is going to be the mainstay in the future, and I think every OEM is currently working towards designing such solutions. So that's the best of both the worlds, wind as well as solar together.
But I would like to ask Sabyasachi now, but we have been talking about solar a lot. The wind has been catching up, but the buzzword today is solar. So do you think somewhere solar has stolen the thunder from wind?
See, actually, wind was always the, because of the challenges facing the hydro sector, wind was actually the mainstay of the renewable energy in India. It's only in the last 2-3 years that solar has come up in a big way, and in 2016 for the first time we saw solar catching up with wind. It was almost equal installation, and in 2017 we do expect that solar would outstrip wind in terms of incremental capacity addition. But having said that, wind, we see a lot of potential for wind going forward. Even if you assume a very conservative energy demand growth rate of about 6% and increase in the RPO, which is as per the NAPCC, we still see even at the 6% level about 35 gigawatts of incremental requirement of wind, assuming that wind will continue to maintain the lion's share of the non-solar RPO.
Okay, but when we talk about RPO, there have been reports that DISCOMs have been shutting off renewable supply now and then. So what do you have to say about that?
Yes, one of the reasons, of course, is that, as you are aware, that many of the DISCOMs are facing serious financial challenges. But having said that, the government has put in a scheme called Uday, which basically includes not only deleveraging through takeover of debt, but also a number of other measures such as, promise to reduction of AT&C losses over a period of time, 2 to 3% per annum. In addition, they are, increasing the supply of coal, making procurement of short-term power cheaper. So this is expected over a period of time. We see possibly from the next year itself, some easing of fiscal pressures on the discoms, which could again enable them to increase. So one of the reasons why RPO is not being enforced is because the SERCs themselves are aware that the discoms are in financial distress and they cannot be expected to add to the RPO. But possibly once the fiscal challenges for discoms become less challenging, possibly the RPOs will be enforced more strictly, and we could see again discoms picking up renewable energy, including wind.
I would like to go to Mr. Jethani now. A lot of times wind players have said that they don't enjoy the benefits and the incentives that the solar guys enjoy. So do you think the government can do something, or do you think that bringing them at par would really push the sector going ahead?
On this issue, I will industries with here. So I think they are at par with the solar. If you talk about the GBI is not available in the solar. Accelerated depreciation is available in both the sectors, in wind as well as in solar. But in wind, if you are not availing the accelerated depreciation, you are eligible for getting the GBI, that is for the 50 paisa per unit. So that is an additional advantage to the wind.
I think we are to be believed that the government is also in talks with World Bank regarding some payment security mechanism for renewable players.
That is there for the solar. Solar, the projects that is being taken up by the Solar Energy Corporation of India, we have a payment security mechanism there. For wind, we are going to start a bidding process very soon. So there we can think of payment security mechanism.
Okay. But Chintan, would you think private players have always said that they are against the bidding process and they would continue to like to go with the feed-in tariff, like the way it was?
It's not okay. Private sector, what private sector views is very simple. See, the way the wind sector has been created in India, it's a developer-driven sector, and any project when you put up for wind, it takes 2 to 3 years. You measure wind data, you go for land allocation or land procurement, draw your power evacuation lines. Now, if you don't have a visibility towards tariff, you would not do it. Or else, if you have a visibility of tariff, it will take about 3 years or 4 years to do it. What private sector's view is that if you want to just replicate case 1, case 2 bidding, which was there for conventional power as well as hydro and all and gas, you can't make it happen in wind. So we're not against bidding. Rather, if you're asking me, most of the PSUs that have been investing into wind projects, they have been going for bidding on capex basis, on an EPC basis. So bidding is bidding, I mean to say. Either you go on a turnkey EPC basis, which is also a type of bid, or tariff-based bidding. Now, tariff-based bidding, one has to look at the way the corridors are available in India, who is going to be off-taker, and who has got the allocation over there. Now, that becomes a bit of a complex issue, and I think Ministry is working very hard to ensure that you get somewhere midway of case 1 and case 2. Elements of case 1 and case 2 would be required, not the entirety. Otherwise, it cannot happen. And what MNR is trying to attempt is an interstate transaction. So we'll have to see how the entire framework has to be created for interstate. And very rightly pointed out, for the future is going to be interstate only, because most of the wind states either would have met that non-solar RPO from wind. So they may not find much of an off-taker within the state itself. So you have to go to the other 29 states of India who have shortfall of non-solar, provided the framework is in place. And I think we are working together with the ministry to ensure that this happens. So we are not against it.
Okay, great. I would like to ask Mr. Sarvesh Kumar now. The wind repowering policy has been announced, and that any turbine below 1 megawatt would be repowered. Do you think that the grid has the capacity to absorb power in case the capacity increases and the generation also increases?
Well, when we look at the policy, first of all, it is a great initiative of the government. We have almost close to 4,000 megawatt, which was set up before 2000, and wherein the kilowatt turbines have been set up. And yes, there are a lot of challenges in front of us. First of all, where the land belongs to the private party. The point comes that whether they are willing to part with their land. Yes, where the government land is there, yes, we can take an initiative and we can put up a large turbine. But when we are going for a large turbine, obviously the idea here is that we should maximize the output which is available today. I am associated with this industry for the last 30 years. Wind is in my blood. Practically, when I look at it, I started dealing with the ministry when it was Department of Non-Conventional Energy Sources. Today, later on they became Ministry of Non-Conventional Energy Sources, and then they became Ministry of New and Renewable Energy Sources. And I have seen the technology going upward from 55 kilowatt today to 2.5 megawatt turbine, and perhaps maybe sooner we may have a 3 megawatt turbine also coming up. Where the 55 kilowatt turbine is being put up, or where the 200 kilowatt turbine is put up, or 500 is being put up. If we just put up a larger turbine, obviously we are going to get a maximum output of it. At the same time, yes, grid is going to be the challenge. If we are going to increase the capacity, if the existing capacity is say 50 megawatts versus 50 megawatt, yes, we will have more power generation. Because if suppose the older turbines, if they are producing say 100 gigawatt hour, perhaps maybe going within a new technology, we may get around 20 to 25% extra generation. But yes, the grid is going to be a big challenge if we are going to increase the capacity itself. As far as the generation is concerned, yes, generation can be taken out from the existing setup.
What is the way out now? What do you think?
See, first of all, we have to practically educate the the old investors. We have to go to them. We have to talk to them. Yes, well, we can definitely give you a newer technologies while you are sticking to the old one. We can give you a new technology. We can give you a higher hub height. We can give you a higher rotor diameter. But at the same time, I think one more initiative can be taken up, which I am going to suggest to the ministry, that why not they look at it, why not we move all these old wind turbines to third world countries, wherein the India has some obligations, like for argument's sake, like for Afghanistan. Like maybe some turbines can go to Bhutan, or some turbines maybe can go to Nepal and all. We can move these turbines. In that way, the realization will be much better. And when the realization is going to be much better, then it becomes much more easier for us to convince the old investor, because otherwise they are sitting with a set mind, because they have practically they have enjoyed all the benefits and they continue to enjoy the benefits. So unless until they are being given some added advantage, obviously it becomes a little bit difficult. And at the same time, when we look at the old technology turbines, yes, of course, they don't have all kinds of old, like today, it's a digitalization. In the digitalization, sitting in the office, you can really, monitor the whole turbine, you can control the whole turbine. But perhaps maybe in the older turbine, that facility is not available. So we can, unless until we go and really convince them, it's going to be a challenge. But I don't really rule out the initiative of the government, practically not only in repowering, in all other areas. They are very, very, sitting within a positive mind. Whenever we go to them, whenever we discuss with them the newer challenges being faced by the industry, they are always supportive to us.
Okay. Coming back to Mr. Jethani, do you agree that it could be a solution that moving the old wind plants to third world countries like Afghanistan and Bhutan?
He has given answer to his question itself when saying that the new turbines are having some digital kind of technologies and new things. So whether the old one is acceptable there is a question. I don't foresee they will accept the older technologies.
Okay, great. Coming to Sabyasachi, a lot has been talked about offshore wind energy, but nothing has been visible yet. So your views on that, and when do you think that something could be seen?
I believe the first project is due to be awarded in Gujarat. I believe Suzlon is working on it. It will take some time because offshore wind energy, it has got its challenges, and capital cost is typically higher, but also the PLFs are better. But I think it will take some time, because typically we have seen that offshore development has always followed onshore wind energy. So it will take some time before offshore picks up in a big way. Let's see how the first few projects get implemented.
But do you think there will be takers for this?
Well, let's see. I mean, what kind of tariffs are acceptable to the industry, and whether those tariffs are acceptable to discoms as well.
Chintan, the companies, many wind power companies have now been getting into solar as well and looking at hybrid solutions. So, do you think this could be the future going ahead?
That is the future. As I was trying to tell you, a standalone wind or a standalone solar, both have got their own challenges from the load dispatch point of view. For example, the plant load factor for a wind project may be ranging from 30 to 35%. That means you are loading the transmission line only 35% of the time. Similar in case of solar, we can go for a loading with a tracker at 24%. Now again, the transmission facility only on for 24%. If you have a standalone solar, you know that in the evening there is no sun. In the night there is no sun, but the grid has to be alive. So there is a huge amount of capacity and load that gets created. Bit technical in nature. Similar in case of wind also, every time wind is not available. Now there are places in India where both can be co-located, wind as well as solar, and inject them at a transmission level. And you may not require the same amount of transmission capacity because there is a phenomenological balance between wind and solar. For example, during monsoon, you have huge amount of wind but very low insolation on solar. Similarly, during a daytime, when you have a cloud cover, you have more of wind, less of cloud cover, more of sun. So it balances out each other, seasonal as well on a daily basis. In the night, in the evening, in the morning, you have a fair amount of wind available. In the mid of the day, you have sun available. So the logic is you have a 100 megawatt of suppose transmission capacity, you inject 100 megawatt of wind and a 50 megawatt of solar. So you get an effective plant load factor at transmission level hovering there 45%, which is very good because you behave like a base load and you are less variable, more predictable, plus you are loading a transmission facility to a great extent. And when you touch 45-50%, actually talking about thermal projects now. So this is the way forward. This is bound to happen. So we will see it maybe the next 1 or 2 years. You will find some amount of new hybrid projects already coming up in India, and that is going to be the mainstay in the future. Either you join wind with an existing solar, or solar with an existing wind.
Okay.
Either way.
I think that would make the grid also a bit stable.
Exactly.
Okay. But do you think storage also could be a big help to renewable capacity?
See, either, okay, what happens today in the current parlance of electricity markets in India, you have a fair amount of supply available and you find thermal power plants backing down. More and more RE capacity in the grid means more and more spinning reserve required, or have a battery storage. The current battery economics is not in favor of battery because the cost of battery to be added for to store electricity, it doesn't make a commercial sense today. But yes, work on that side is already started happening as we speak. Maybe 5-7 years down the line, this might be commercially viable. But today, backing down a power plant is cheaper than a battery. So that is what the case is today. In the future, when we will have maybe a demand supply shortage, where you have the short-term power prices going up to 7 rupees, 8 rupees, battery would make a commercial sense. So it's pure market economics. But I believe so that MNRE is looking to put up a pilot project employing batteries and essentially studying it, at what sort of implications it would have on the grid and in terms of dispatchability. So we'll have to see. Battery, I would say 5 years, 6 years down the line, not before that.
But all said and done, this is for all four of you. We are talking about increased generation and transmission and everything, but do you think we really have the demand right now in the country? We may be a power surplus country, but do you think we are a demand deficit country right now in terms of power?
If you are looking at unrestricted demand, we are still a deficit. The question is electricity to all, when it happens, when everybody gets electricity, you don't have source of supply. So it's a challenge where essentially the distribution company has to reach out to all consumers, be it rural, be it urban, and if every electricity need is met, which is unrestricted demand, I think you will have a huge amount of demand requirement in the entire country. So it's a question that how fast it is going to happen. A. B is, as we see, the economy is improving today, year on year, and if you have a fair amount of investments coming up in the manufacturing side and also on the commercial side, so you will have a base demand going up in India in the short term. Long term, ultimately, once you reach out to every consumer of India, There are challenges, as you know, of recovery of dues. That's one of the reasons that people under USO still are not able to reach it out. But you have states like Madhya Pradesh who have gone for prepaid meters now. So people essentially can pay in advance and draw electricity. That's the type of thing that would happen, which would make electricity for all actually available by people who would like to buy electricity and use advantages of it.
Mr. Jethani, your thoughts?
Yeah. So he's rightly pointed out that the economy is growing, and suppose our target should be not to just reach the grid to the village and just getting a home lighting system or these things. Our target should be to develop economy there, small cottage industries, so that the energy needs will be there and they require more power for the economic development. Like you can have a cold storage at the village level itself. So that will bring them more money, and in that case you will require more power, and that will bring what we say is better living conditions to these people. So I foresee that the power requirement will grow in the next coming 4-5 years.
Okay. Could you give us a number, the percentage by what you think it should grow?
At present it is 5%, as Mr. Sabyasachi said that, but I think it will be 10% or so.
Okay.
Right now we are looking at about 6 to 7% in the recent past, and there is a certain amount of demand which is getting lost because of the DISCOM finances, because they are not able to pick up the power. But more importantly, we must remember that India's per capita consumption is a fraction of, I'm not even comparing the developed countries, even with the likes of China or Brazil, we are still less than half of 1/3 of these countries. So there is clearly in the long term, there is a significant demand potential, and obviously our power generation industry, whether it's thermal or renewable, I think because you cannot set up a capacity overnight. So we need to be in a state of readiness on the generation as well as transmission and distribution side to meet that demand as and when it arises.
See, he has picked up some of my mind already. I was going to talk about this per capita consumption. Today, if you look at in India, our per capita consumption is not even 1000 kilowatt hour, whereas in the developed world, it is 5000 to 10,000 kilowatt hour. So obviously, we are nowhere. So saying this that there is a excess electricity in this country, perhaps maybe when we look at it that every person should get electricity, yes, it is there. But whether all his needs are being met, the answer is no. Another thing is that you have raised a very valid question about demand. When we look at the wind industry today, wind practically is made in India. We have seen originally equipment coming from outside. Today we have 80% of the wind manufacturing in India itself. Not only we have created an investment, we have created a good employment, and we have practically brought this to an international level. When you look at the other sources, now I will talk about solar. Practically everything is imported. So are we really generating employment for that? Question is very limited. Here again, when you come to your thermal power plants, except a couple of companies in India, rest again it is coming from either from China or from other parts of the world. But here, look at our initiative. Look at the wind manufacturers initiative. The first thing what we did, with the help of the ministry, originally they were allowing us to import a full wind turbine. Slowly they came forward. They said, no, you cannot import everything. Now you will be allowed to import certain components, and slowly they removed those components also. And today we are sitting in a situation wherein we have a setup of 9,000 megawatt of manufacturing setup in this country, and all make in India. So obviously we are not only adding into the Indian economy directly, but indirectly also. So if we use this power, obviously, in my opinion, the demand should be more, because they should come forward. They should say that yes, we would like to buy a wind power. which is practically made here today.
But discoms are really in a bad shape these days, and even thermal is not getting picked up. So,
Okay, I'll just add to what Sarvesh said because I didn't want to brush on this topic, but he has only touched based on that. You did ask one question that why private sector is against competitive bidding. I'll tell you how it happens. For an instant, just forget about power sector. When anybody sets up a manufacturing unit, he looks at the market visibility. That's what you do as a manufacturer.
Yeah.
Feed-in tariff gives a market visibility. So whenever competitive bidding in capital goods has happened in India, it has led to imports. Be it ultra mega power project or be it solar. And that is what exactly they should be doing because you are supposed to source the cheapest possible product. That's what happens in competitive bidding. The question is, what do you want to do? You want to buy cheaper power or you want to grow the economy of India? It's a philosophical debate. If you go on a feed-in tariff model, I'm telling you, if you give feed-in tariff model to solar tomorrow, we'll have manufacturing of solar available in India because there's a visibility. Simple. And now the question is, you want a manufacturing driven GDP or a service based GDP? In ultra mega power projects, you have a huge amount of service manpower, but entire manufacturing was done somewhere outside India. Same is the case in solar. You have a service manpower coming to India.
Yeah.
The question is, do we really want to have a fair amount of BOP in terms of imports? Because you don't have that economy of scale here in today. As far as wind is concerned, what has happened? Although because of feed-in tariff, today Indian products are the only capital good products which are accepted in US. India has been exporting wind turbines to US, to Germany, to Australia. Okay, that means our product, brand India, is accepted from because of why? Because you have a base market available in India, which helps the manufacturers survive to do business over here and export over there. Till this date, India has exported 7 gigawatt of wind turbines. Till this date, and there's a huge potential to export further. The question is, because you had a feed-in tariff in India, led to manufacturing over India is also leading to export from India. Now, that is a model that Indian wind sector has been created. Now it's up to us. Would like to have a similar model for solar? It's a question, a philosophical question, has to be posed. On the other side, talking about demand part, I'm telling you, I can mitigate the entire 80 gigawatt balance of solar and wind to be added in a flick of a second. Every state, under the smart cities program, 100 cities, we are supposed to employ electric buses. Roughly 100,000 electric buses have to be deployed. One bus consumes 0.7 million units a year, which can easily be met from 80,000 megawatt of wind and solar. New consumer load, not an existing consumer load. Discom should not have a problem. You are not essentially harping on their consumer. Electric bus doesn't exist today in India. And you charge when? In the night. So it is beneficial for the Discom. Now somehow the government has to balance out between electric vehicles and the 175 gigawatt program without harming the cash flow of the distribution company. You are creating a new consumer load and you are also feeding the supply. Now you actually have a green bus because this green bus is getting charged by wind and solar, obviously using the grid. So these are initiatives that one has to now look into for the future. Otherwise, what you're saying is right, there's going to be a resistance because today the consumer demand is not going up. How to create? These are the methods to create, and there are other methods to create. For example, you have a scheme for cold chains in India. There's a massive investment happening in cold chains today because of agriculture produce. Now, cold chains, the basic operating cost is electricity, cold storages. You don't have labor much. This is a capex and electricity. Why can't they be powered from wind or solar? So these are avenues, and these are new consumer loads. So absolutely no issue for a distribution company. The moment you don't increase the consumer load of a distribution company, there's a resistance. There are methods to do it, but this requires interministerial work, interstate work, center and state together. And I think that's feasible. Once you have a powerful leadership at the center, why not?
Mr. Jethani, do you think the government is thinking in this direction?
I fully agree with Mr. Chintan Shah that you have to work together with the central and state and create such kind of things where the renewable energy can be deployed. Like rightly pointed out, the electric buses or the cold storage, small cities. So same kind of like rooftop. In rooftop, the consumer puts itself and he is a generator. So there is practically no requirement of transmission and distribution lines. The same infrastructure can be used and he can use his own electricity. Such kind of thing can be developed for the development of renewable with that, I think further, I would like to add one more thing about the climate change that has been declared in the COP21, that India has to reduce its carbon emission intensity by 30 to 35% of its GDP by 2030, and also to add another to reach the 40% of its electric installed capacity coming from the non-fossil. So, looking forward to these targets, I think we have to go with this renewable, not only 175 gigawatt by 2022, but we have to look forward up to 2030.
Okay. Now that we were talking about manufacturing, I would like to ask Sarvesh, what do you think would be the impact of GST on the wind sector?
Well, it all depends upon what rate is being imposed. We have worked out all permutations and combinations. We are waiting for the rate to be announced. Our earnest request would be, if it is zero, that will really help. End of the day, we are passing on that benefit to the end consumer. It is not that the manufacturer is taking the benefit of it. We are very, very, we are having very clear thoughts in the industry. Every month we meet, and every 4 weeks to 6 weeks we discuss about all the issues. The industry is very open. Industry doesn't want that, if we are being benefited by the government, and we immediately pass those benefits to the end consumers. So whatever comes, we have to accept. It's going to be, end of the day, a larger decision. It's not only related to one industry, it is related to many industries. So whatever will come, if we get benefit, we will pass it on to the industry. If suppose we are being loaded with it, then end of the day, that will be loaded to the industry. So we are both way open as far as this is concerned.
So unique thing about electricity is the philosophy of GST. There's an entire chain, the input and output chain. Unfortunately, electricity, the chain breaks, because the electricity duty is not subsumed as a part of GST. So whatever input GST comes to the end product, you can't get an exit out of it. But it is the issue just not for wind, it's an issue for solar, for thermal, for gas, to that matter any generating electricity. So the question is, if the government is not going to take cognizance of this fact, you will see tariff increase across India, because all input GST has to be then loaded on the tariff. There's no option. Or you don't put the project if the tariff is not going to go up. And then this pass through can be as high as ranging from 40 paisa to 80 paisa. So that is the impact you will see. Unless there is a call taken of how the rate of electricity would be. They can pack different rates for different power. For example, green energy, it can be 0 rate. So brown power, it can be 5% or at 12%. That justification can be created, but essentially the rate has to be fixed. It cannot be the proposed rate, which may be ranging from 18 to 22%, because otherwise every electricity price is going to bound to go up. There's no option.
Sabyasachi, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think broadly yes, and also what is the final GST charge on electricity sale to the end consumer. So I think a lot of clarity is required on that, because as my fellow panelists have rightly pointed out, if the GST rates are high, that will end up in higher tariff for everybody.
Thank you, gentlemen. There was a very interesting discussion on wind energy. Stay tuned with ETEnergyWorld. We'll come back with more. Thank you so much.